Entrepreneurs are deep thinkers. We each have a million ideas zipping around in our heads, and if we're lucky, a great one pops up every now and then. But there's a stark difference between the people who dream and the people who do. Tiffany Lewis made that realization after serving 8 years in the Navy. Before launching TJL Collection, a fashion brand aimed at tall women, she was a lifelong dreamer. The tallest one in the room from a young age, her height had always matched the loftiness of her professional goals. Yet the security of her HR day job held her firmly in place. Going back to school to pursue fashion was risky. Tiffany drew on the sewing skills she picked up at age 14 and got to work, dreaming of a bold line of garments that empowered taller women like herself. Finally, she saw that her vision was becoming a reality, and she never looked back. Today, Tiffany's work has been featured in publications like New York Magazine and Voyage Atlanta. Her customers love the high quality of her garments, but also her Tall Girls meetup events. She had just returned from a meetup in Dallas when we recorded this episode, glowing with gratitude towards the women she met that day. You're about to hear Tiffany's journey from dreamer to doer, the stumbling blocks she faced as a taller woman in fashion, and how she eventually learned to choose her own path. I'm Catherine Vasilopoulos, and this is And So She Left, the podcast about incredible women founders and the wisdom they uncovered beyond the corporate world. Growing up in Memphis, Tiffany dreamt of traveling abroad to experience other cultures, foods, and people. So when she joined the Navy, she was thrilled by the opportunity to go elsewhere.
I remember trying lumpia for the first time. In Memphis, we just didn't eat that. And it may seem so minute to people, but I tried Caribbean food for the first time, like my first year in the service. It was more so one of those things where I wanted to challenge myself to think differently and look at the world differently.
For Tiffany, the Navy offered secure and steady work. Her HR position handed her countless opportunities to help others, which she loved. But going off to pursue a creative career in fashion, what she really wanted had never really been in the cards.
A lot of times people ask me, did I play basketball? That's almost always the same question I get asked. Right. Did you play basketball? And, how tall are your parents, or just how tall am I in general? So I have this saying on one of my shirts that says, 6'1", don't ask. And it's just, it always is like something that makes people laugh because I'm like, just don't ask me, I'm 6'1". And so I've just learned to own it. It's just who I am. I really just have learned to make it my brand now. Mm-hmm. And accept it like, okay, I can brand this thing. This is something that is natural to people to want to talk about, to, have conversations. It doesn't matter if I'm in the airport, in my kids' school, my height comes up in conversation.
Mm-hmm. And I love that this is something that you decided that this is your strength and this is a characteristic of you that's unique to you, and that you decided to do something with it to improve other people's lives through fashion. Mm-hmm. Tell me more about that journey and that process.
So when I decided to leave the Navy, I told myself, you have to make this work, because going back to me leaving, a lot of my peers, a lot of my mentors, a lot of my supervisors were like, you're crazy to be leaving these good benefits, this good job, and going into an entrepreneurial journey, right? Which has no blueprint whatsoever. And so I told myself, you have to make this work not only for yourself, and not in the sense of I got to prove a point so I can come back and say, I told you so. It's not one of those vindictive things. It's just I want to show people you can pivot and you can do it. And so it took me 2 years to figure out manufacturing, surprisingly. And so many factories at the beginning couldn't believe the measurements I was sending. You know what I mean? They were like, is this in inches or centimeters? And I'm like, inches,
Yeah,
and
because you're making clothing specifically for
tall people. And I would have to get on video and measure myself and show them like, no, my legs really are that long. My arms really are that long. And so I knew that if the factories were confused about it, then I know there's not a lot of companies making clothing for my length.
That's a learning. And you realize, well, maybe there's a particular market here for this. And there are people out there like you who are above 6 feet and they need to be clothed. And there need to be choices for people who are in atypical bodies.
It's extremely hard. And the thought is, I don't have a basic tracksuit. I don't have a basic pair of pants, a basic pair of denim. So you have to build those closets up along with your customers and give them things that they need first and then the fun stuff later.
Right. So you have to build that classic part first, like the 80%, and then the 20% is the fun stuff. So I wanted to know, what was your biggest challenge for you to just enter into entrepreneurship? Because you've come from a military background, which is not fashion at all. Everybody's dressed the exact same way.
I always have had a lot of individuality, from hair to nails and my fashion style and things like that. But I never really wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always thought that I would work for a big company as a designer. I thought I would work in-house and bring my ideas and my styles to a bigger company. So when I got out the service, I went and worked for the Marine Corps as a civilian for a little while. My junior Marines would always be like, oh, Miss Tiffany, we love what you're wearing. My outfits will become conversation. So they were like, post what you're wearing today. So we started kind of blogging my looks for the day. And tall women on the internet would be like, can you make me some? And can you do this? And my husband was kind of like, maybe this could be a business. It wasn't really something that I wanted to be a business. It was just like the market opened up to me and accepted me, and I entered it and decided to put my own, twist on things.
Right. Did you have to go through some form of mind shift to go from a very organized and regimented kind of job to now being an entrepreneur where every day is different? Every day is a new challenge and a new set of information that you have to then react to.
I mean, of course, at the beginning, the funding piece, right? How are you going to make money and how are you going to even start the business? And so I pulled my 401k, which was very risky, but I pulled my 401k and I was like, I'm just going to try, and I mean, the hard part is always funding, because unless you have, that big lump sum to really get things going and do things right, a lot of it you're doing on your own. You're your own video editor. You're your own model. You're your own customer service. You're everything to the brand. And so, I mean, the challenging part is getting started on very limited funding and figuring out how to grow and scale from there, and getting away from that analysis paralysis when it's not perfect. I didn't have a great camera at the beginning. It's really hard starting with limited funds and trying to still live and keep the lights on and do the things that you need to do at home so that you can have a great quality of life.
I feel like you did sort of what I did at the beginning when I started my business, which was there's not a lot of equipment. There's not a lot of anything. But with every client, you figure out a way to improve. So you just reinvest in the business. And that's you're self-funded almost, as opposed to have to go out and find investors or loans or anything like that. And that could be scary because you don't know if you're going to make it. You don't know what the next client will want from you. You were saying analysis paralysis. Was there ever a fear that, this won't work?
I mean, I think going back to that militant way of doing things, you want to do things right. And because you want to do things right so bad, it will hinder you sometimes from actually doing it. And I remember making, stuff for clients when I was sewing, knowing it wasn't the best I could be one day. That was the best I could do that day, right? It was like, and they were happy, but it's like, man, I know I'm not producing what this company is producing, right? And stuff like that. And I still struggle with that. Like, we just had an event this past Saturday, and we had over 220 tall women in the room that flew in from all over the U.S. to come
Wow.
shop at this event that I hosted. And as great as it was, I was still thinking, man, I wish I had, you know what I mean? And so
Yes.
it's just that perfectionism, I think, in you that can kind of sometimes stop you from operating.
That's so impressive. I hear the number and I imagine what the room looked like.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It was the first time I've been eye level with 200 women. Like, can you imagine that? We were eye level, looking at each other like, the same. It's amazing.
To describe the event, what happened?
So in me leaving corporate, I said, well, I know I'm not the only person struggling. And when you start doing your market research, you look up your competitors, as most businesses should, and you want to know who else is in the market. And I realized, like, okay, there are a ton of us who are only e-commerce because there's no in-person shopping. So I got together with a couple of the brands. This was our first year. I think it was only maybe 4 or 6 vendors. And I was like, hey, would you guys want to come vend? And we'll host like a tall girl shopping event. And it's grown now to year 3. We had 16 vendors there and over 220 customers. But they fly to Dallas just to shop for one day because they're not able to shop anywhere. So when I tell you they spend money, so I think collectively we made a little over 50 grand within 5 hours with the brands. But that's the one time a year. It's only once a year that they can shop that many brands that sell clothes at their height in the day.
Right. What kind of feedback did you get? Like, what stories did you hear from these women? And that resonated with you.
I'm still coming off a high. Like, I know what's today, Friday. So I'm still haven't taken it all in. It's just magical because thinking back to when I was, sitting at my desk in my job, happy but not satisfied, and having these thoughts and these dreams and these ideas, to see them come to life and it's real and factual, that is really, I think, what gets me, because I remember fighting so much with myself on, like, are these thoughts real? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, when you're getting ready to make a big decision like that. And so now to see it come to life and to know that it was a real dream, it was a real aspiration, it's something real that people love, and they're marking calendars for next year and want to come next year, and more vendors want to be involved. So we're actually hunting for a convention center now, because I'm like, it's no way we were stuffed in there last weekend. So I'm grateful that I heard the call, listened to it, and was obedient.
This is incredible, because this shows that you had not exactly sure what you wanted to do at the beginning, the first phase of your life. And then as you go through life, things were revealing themselves to you, and you just continued and you kept working hard. And now you are able to manifest this incredible event that is helping women who have a very particular need. And you were a big instrumental part of that. Like, how does that feel?
It feels really good. It's relieving too, because, being a dreamer, you can have a lot of thoughts and not execute them. You can have a lot of things come through your mind and think, what if that, what if, but you may not execute it. And that's the most daunting thing as well, to have thoughts and ideas and not be able to see them come to fruition. So for me, like, the relief is in, I'm glad that I got it out of my brain and I made it happen.
Yes, you got it out of your brain and it became a reality. So it's true. Thoughts become things. Yes. It really is. I believe that. I believe that if you can dream it or think it, you can do it. And it's just, I hope that other people listening to this will actually be inspired by that if they have a moment where they're like, oh, I don't like what I'm doing right now, and I'd much rather do something else. I mean, what kind of advice would you give someone who is in that position?
I sit on a board and I mentor a lot of young girls, and I always tell them, like, I think the internet now makes you feel like at 18 you got to be the next millionaire or go viral at 20, and it's so much pressure. But honestly, careers or even college and different things like that, they give you great skills that you can translate into entrepreneurship. Even me getting sponsors and getting grants, they write up those proposals. That comes from me working in HR for so long, being able to translate the impact into numbers and data. And I wish more people trusted that you can still get there even after going through, working, even after college. Like, you don't have to skip the steps. As much as the internet makes you feel that way, you don't. Because to me, I read this article, I think it was in Forbes, and it was talking about the most successful tech companies that like 90% of those founders are over the age of 42. That shows you that they had funding probably to put toward the business, meaning they had worked and had skills and relationships and different things that you need to really successfully run a business. Not saying that at 18 you can't do it. It's just that I wish it wasn't so much pressure on you that you have to rush and do it young or you will never get it at all.
Exactly. Some people start really late in things. Sometimes people start when they're 80, and it's never too late. And you're right. There is a lot of pressure, especially now where everyone can look and peer into other people's lives on the internet. And you have this incredible moment of comparison, and you're saying, oh, why haven't I achieved this yet? So I'm 18 and I haven't done this yet, or I'm 30 and I haven't done this yet. The inability to just focus on ourselves because we have way too much data and visuals that are telling us. Yes, absolutely. Tell me about what life was like for you during the pandemic. I know it's it's a dirty word at this point, but I think that some wonderful things happened for you during that.
Oh my goodness. I launched my ready to wear right in the middle of COVID. Didn't plan it that way. I just had been working on it, and I was like, I'm going to launch it, June 2020. And June 2020 ended up being the pandemic time. And so I was living in Hawaii. And so the difference on that island, they were really, really strict for a way longer time than the connected United States, because the island only had so many hospitals, and a little spread could like wipe the island out. So me and my husband spent a lot of time together, and we ended up having 3 kids during the pandemic. It was beautiful because it gave me so much clarity. And so I launched my business, and the beautiful thing was everybody was online, because most people were home too. So I sold out of my spring collection in like 2 weeks. And I told my husband, I was like, I have to keep doing this, because as more people talked about it and referred other people to me, my customers started coming and coming and coming. And so we really just honed in on how to take the brand to the next level and figuring out how to scale it. And I'm still figuring out how to scale, but figuring out how to scale it to where I didn't have to sew everything so much myself, because I spent a lot of time behind the sewing machine at the beginning.
Oh, because you were creating individual pieces, like really to measure to the person who was ordering, right?
But I was doing smaller batches, maybe like 10 of these prints and 10 of these prints. But the customer base grew, and I needed more of one print. You know what I mean? And so I went into manufacturing, but that's a different beast because the minimums get a lot higher. And then now you're dealing with shipping costs.
Yes. Let me ask you this then. You said something earlier that I wanted to touch on is you said you're a dreamer. And I think that you're going to be a perpetual dreamer. And I wanted to know, what do you dream about next?
What I dream about next is walking into a retail store and seeing my picture up there and going to take a picture with my brand. Like, that's the next big thing that I dream about. But even going back to, I can even remember before I joined the military, I'd never been to California. I really hadn't really been outside of Tennessee that much, to be honest, or like states that connected to Tennessee that we could drive to. And I wanted to go to USC because I had saw USC from like movies and TV and stuff. And my mom was like, this out of state tuition is going to be super expensive to go to California. And so when I could travel for the first time, California was the first place I went to, which is funny because my husband's from California. But
Okay.
I think like going back to now, I've always executed the things that I dreamed about. It just may have taken a while. And so my mind is set on how do I get TJL to retail to where my customer in Wyoming can go to her local store and get her pants because she got called for an interview and it's Thursday and she needs them tomorrow.
Right.
Not waiting a week to get something that may or may not fit because she may need the large, she may need the extra large. And that pressure that I feel when I got a call for an interview and I had to figure out something to wear within a couple of days.
Right, right. And that makes a lot of sense. That's where your business is going. I think you're already seeing it, and it's just a matter of time. Everything needs to align, and you're getting there. I think it's a fantastic opportunity, and it's a fantastic product for people to have this option. It really is. And here's the other question. When you met your husband, how did that impact your career choice? Like, did you have to make any decisions based on that?
When I met my husband, he didn't want to stay in the Navy forever either. His thing was like, it has to be something beyond this. And so we had always had strategic plans on how to make sure our footing was good when we left. Now, his goal was like, let me get my education because he's an engineer. So he wanted to get his degrees and his certifications and everything before he got out. But we had both always knew that that wasn't the final stop for us. We just didn't know what else was next. So him and I worked because he understood preparation for the next step. Like we didn't jump blindly. We just said, okay, we'll re-sign for one more tour for 4 more years. And in these 4 years, we should have these things by the time we're done.
So it sounds like it was a good team, and he's a good support for you as well.
He is. I mean, he also, I think he gets me. He gets that I get obsessed with ideas. Like I'll wake him up at 2:00 in the morning, like, oh my God, I think we should do this or I think we should do that. And he's like, are you serious right now? But then honestly, he'll still research and figure it out. He'll still help me out. And so I named my brand after him and my father. So TJL is Tiffany Jones-Lewis. That's what it stands for, which is my name. I always say that my dad, he's my biggest cheerleader. Like, cause of course he's known me since I was born. And so he understands that I'm determined, that I'm creative. My husband is that fire underneath it. Like if I tell him something, I'm like, nah, I don't know if that'll be. And he'd be like, well, let's just see. He's my researcher. Because he's an engineer, he does programming and stuff. He's like a solutions person. And so if it's possible, we'll do it. And I think I needed 2 men in my life who don't make me feel crazy for dreaming either. You know what I mean? And so I love that because your dreams really could be crushed, honestly, by the first person you tell, the first few people you tell. You know, it can stop there.
And especially when it's someone close to you, because those are the people you trust the most. And if they're the ones telling you, no, I wouldn't do that, they influence big time what it is that you want to do. Tell me more about your dad. We haven't talked about him.
Yeah, my dad, so he used to play basketball too, and he coached and everything. And my dad, he worked a lot of jobs. You know, he worked a lot of jobs to take care of us and things like that. And so he has such a great work ethic. I think that's what I picked up on. But he was also one of those coaches that would drop players off whose parents couldn't help and buy food for the team. Just so giving. And I think growing up seeing that really taught me to have empathy for people, and to be loving and caring for people and do the things that you can do for them. And so he really had big dreams for me too. I think he really wanted me to like go play basketball in the WNBA. But I love sports. And what's funny that I'm full circle now, I didn't go play in the WNBA after I stopped playing basketball in college, but I do work with WNBA players now. And I did a fashion show last year with the WNBA. And I told my dad, I was like, look how full circle this is. So I didn't go, but I got a chance to work with them. But
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that.
yeah, it's been a beautiful journey. But he's my biggest cheerleader. Like he really, really is. And he keeps me so grounded and everything. And, I really just feel like this was just what I was supposed to be doing.
Yes, I think so too. It really sounds like it. It sounds like you found your passion project.
Mm-hmm.
And you had the right people around you to support you and not crush the dreams.
Yes.
Yes. Well, sometimes they say, don't tell people your dreams, just do them. And sometimes that's the best thing. If you start telling people what you're going to do, you're going to have all sorts of opinions being thrown at you. And then it becomes confusing because it creates a smoke screen in front of you. And you're like, no. Get out of my way. I need to do what I need to do.
The beautiful thing I can say about my immediate family, my mom, my dad, my husband, and my sister, they may not understand or be like, okay, but they're going to be there and support me. My very first event, I think I hosted it in 2015 or 16. I can't really remember the year. 4 people showed up. And I couldn't believe that. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't believe that only 4 people showed up to my first event. And this year I had 220 people plus show up. And we had to turn people away and we had to turn vendors away this year. So, but they've always been there, even if they were the 4 people.
Thank you so much to Tiffany Lewis. You can browse through TJL Collection and learn more about Tiffany herself through the links in the episode description. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe to And So She Left wherever you listen. Your feedback helps us to better serve current listeners and reach new ones. You can also fill out our quick feedback form. It's just 5 questions long, and your response helps us to make the show that you want to hear. And So She Left is made by Cansulta and Ethan Lee. We'll be back next Wednesday with a new episode. Our music is by Chris Zabriskie, edited for your enjoyment. You can find a list of all the songs you heard here in the episode notes. I'm Catherine Vasilopoulos, and thanks for listening.